Unsyndicated presents Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian.
So glad you could join us. Happy Thursday to you, along with my pal, Matt Shepard. Very, very pleased to be joined by this person. And I promised her that I would say this on this show so she could see it with her own eyes and hear it with her own ears. A tremendous boss, was wonderful for me, allowed me to do all the dumb things that I did. I can't express my appreciation to her enough for that. Our fave, and so much more than just the boss at WDFN, as we'll get to as well. But Rona Danziger kindly joining us. Rona, it's so nice to see you. So nice to catch up with you. How are you?
Good. How you guys doing? It's great. It's like old home day, right? I mean, this is cool.
Yeah.
Mornings
it's
and
fun.
middays.
This has been a lot of fun. And when Sean and I were talking about this, there are certain people we said we have to have on. And you were one of the first people we mentioned because Sean's not blowing smoke, man. You were a great boss. What made you a great boss is the open door policy and the truthfulness when you communicate. What was the biggest enjoyment you had while trying to deal with so many type A personalities and different personalities at the same time?
DFM was fun. I mean, maybe not at the end when everything was blowing up, but I was there from day one back in 94, and it was a passion project. I loved the fact that I was associated with DFN. Building my radio career through DFM I was really proud of it, but we also had a lot of fun, and we really did, you could say we had a lot of crazy personalities, but we had a really good team. We had a lot of fun off the air, which was great. We didn't have a lot of turnover. People enjoyed being there, and we had no resources compared to anybody else. You guys know it. We had no money for payroll. We had old equipment half the time. We always were sort of the stepchildren on the AM dial to the FM radio stations in the group, but everybody respected what we did, because what we did was really hard, because you guys and all of us were the product. There's no music. There was, we were the product. We were going to rise and fall on what we brought to the table. And it became really obvious that what people looked to DFN for was an escape. It wasn't just sports. It was like an escape from their day. It was getting ready for that work day they might have been dreading, driving, at lunchtime after a rough morning meeting, or going from meeting to meeting and turning us on and getting a little escapist. And after a bad day, especially coming home and listening to Stoney and Wojo and laughing and everything else, for us, we brought a lot to the table for people. And I love that. I thought that was great. And when I talk to listeners, they love that.
Rona, one of the things, and I don't want to say that I went kicking and screaming, but one thing that I found out in the last 20 years is I remember you telling me in particular, because I was a sports nerd, and I guess I still am. I remember you telling me in particular, listen, we can't do the 100% sports stuff. We can't. We just can't do it. And I can say, I mean, my gosh, it is what it is. Hasn't been on in 16 years. And when I hear from people, they're not talking about it more often than not, the sports takes that I had. They're talking about Tales from the South. They're talking about air attacks. They're talking about META. They're talking about those things.
Snowstorm coverage.
Yes, who can forget Death Storm and Caribou Drew? Shout out to Drew Nickel. But those are the things. It is amazing to me. Lo, these many years later, I mean, you were spot on with that. That is stuff that made for lasting, lifelong memories for people.
Yeah. And you know how you figure that out? Hey, you can look at ratings, but we would go to events, right? And we would literally talk to listeners, and they would pack some of those events. And if you asked listeners what they remembered from their listening experience, it was either breaking news or it was all the other stuff. They remembered the wacky stuff that we did. That was what they remembered. Name That Dick. They remembered Mita, and they remembered snowstorm coverage and Death Storm. They remember Angry Shep. They remember the sound effect game, spousal arousal and squares and all that stuff. They never talked about the sports coverage. And, we could see it in the ratings, especially when we went to, away from a diary to a meter, that when we started breaking down, you could break down the Lions all day long, but if you started breaking down Pistons and even Red Wings, the ratings dropped time. And if we weren't talking about the woman in the front row with the big hooters and, her jumping up and down, that got the ratings going and kept them listening. But if you started breaking down what was happening on the court at that same time, every time it was a dip. And it might, you couldn't even look at the phone calls because the same people would call over and over and over again. They'd load the lines up and there was like a false sense of ratings, but you could see it. And when you talk to listeners, it was always the other stuff. It was the wacky, fun, crazy stuff that we did. It was breaking down the Stony and Wojo candy tournament, and they left off Rolos, and it was just appalling. And, that's what people talked about. I still remember to this day, Jamie and Brady messing with Shep, who was home dealing with, I forget what it was. I think it was like your furnace or something. And it was like freezing cold in the house. And they called in as the furnace guys that couldn't show up. And you almost lost it. And I was like, keep your finger on the dump button. And you kept together because your kids were in the same room. But you were and I remember them screwing with you, and it was great. I think Darren Brady might have been on the call.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Right. That's the stuff people take away. It's not the day-to-day, who's pitching tonight stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. I mean, it was such a great fraternity for everybody. You never felt like you were going to work. But there are certain times in your career when you realize it's a big deal to them, right? I mean, I was talking with a 24-year-old kid the other day, and he said, I cannot begin to tell you the impact WDFN had on my life. When did it kind of hit you when you were doing something that really mattered to people deep down inside?
I actually felt it pretty early on in the DFN days, because when we launched, and we were we were in that, the garage, as we called it, and it's this crappy studio on an alley. It's like, wasn't safe. I was working at night, doing the nighttime show with Mega and Jamie. But we had this like camaraderie that we were launching something really special. And as it grew, I mean, it took a while, but as it grew, it didn't take long to realize we were doing something that really resonated with people and that this town needed, that it really needed sports talk in a big way. And I used to listen to sports rap. I used to listen on JR to sports rap, driving out to Ann Arbor and back to see, my then boyfriend, now husband. I was always on the road when that show was on, and I always loved sports rap. And I grew up liking sports. And so to work in sports radio was that was kind of a dream come true, really, because it was just fun. It was just really fun. I mean, it's not heavy like the daily news, I mean, what are you talking about?
Rona Danziger kindly joining us, our boss, and just one of the coolest people that we encountered at WDFN, and a huge part of this history 30 years later. If I could say something, and Lord knows I probably led the league in dumb ideas, but if I could say something that would encapsulate what I think Rona did for our station. Rona, you have no reason to remember this. I walked into your office one December day and I said, Rona, my vacation starts tomorrow. So just so you know, like, I'm not in the mood to do a show. I'm just not. My brain's on vacation already. Can I do a show called Mail-In Day where I just play drops and act like an idiot all day? And Rona looked at me for a second and goes, that is a great idea.
That's
really, I mean, and I'm like, my boss is telling me to mail it in. But Rona, it was one of those things that, I mean, when you think about it, a lot of other people are in that position. It's like, okay, this is my last day of work for the next week or two or whatever the case may be. And it was like we were all just kind of enjoying a Friday saying, all right, this is it for work and we're going off. But that's the one thing I would tell anybody that sticks out to me about you, Rona. And Shep, I'm sure you'll agree with this. if we came up with an idea, you supported us. Now, don't get me wrong. There were times you were like, nah, that's not going to work. But I would say 98% of the time you were like, go for it. I think that's a great idea. See what you can do with it.
Yeah, I love taking intelligent risk. I saw it as intelligent risk. Like, what's the worst thing that happens? It doesn't resonate with people. But I'm like, how would that not resonate with people? I would love a mail-in day. Like, to me, it's, the biggest thing that we always brought it back to, and you guys might remember, is it's about the listener, and it's about who they are and what they're probably thinking about that day and what's going on with them. And who doesn't love a mail-in day? I mean, we knew that our listeners would love a mail-in day, so why not try that? It's the same reason why I love Meta. It's the same reason why all these crazy things that we did, or that we at least tried to do, I was behind, because I thought, why not? That's what the station's about. Like, we take intelligent risk, and if it pays off big, and if it doesn't, we move on to something else. And as long as it's smart, and it's not like we agreed on everything, as you know. I mean, I still will tell you, don't talk whaler hockey on your show. There's not that many people that want to break down the whaler, Sean. But and I know when I was gone, I'd hear whaler hockey talk, and I'd be like, "Ugh." But we took a lot. I mean, the stuff that we did, even being the flagship for teams and the things that we did. I mean, as long as I could defend it and I could make the argument above my head, whether it was to the palace, to our market manager, to their boss outside of the market, I was happy to go to battle for that, because at the end of the day, like, we only get one shot for ratings. I mean, at any given time, a day can make or break your ratings, and people don't realize that. You have a big day of ratings, and that month might be set.
Yeah. It's a male-dominated male-dominated type of format and station. How did you feel as a welcomed female with that whole group?
I always felt welcome. We had a really diverse radio station, if you think about it. I wasn't the only woman at the radio station. I mean, obviously there was me, there was Marty. At different points, we had Jennifer Hammond, we had Dana Wakiji, we had, women were not, we were part of that group. We actually, for a workplace, when you think about, we had, Terry Foster, we had Rob Parker, we had Eric Pate, Clarence Black. Like, we had a really diverse, and I always felt welcome. I didn't realize how rare it was to have a woman working in full-fledged sports radio until I had to go to a conference, and it was all men. And the ESPN rep was like, I don't know if there's another female sports radio program director that's not a syndicated station, like a full-fledged live local radio station in the country. Like, he just never dealt with one. And I have no idea. I mean, he said, I think you're the only one. I'm like, no. But I got an opportunity because we had Lorna Gladstone as the program director, and she believed that I could learn the job. I'd never worked at radio before when she hired me in. Rich Pimenko, Art Regger. I mean, they hired me in, and taught me a lot. I mean, I learned a lot from the people around me. I always felt welcome. I didn't feel at all out of place being a woman in that environment.
Rona Danziger kindly joining us here on Shep and Sean, long-time WDFN employee and eventually our program director. And look who joined the chat, Spicoli. His ears must have been burning. Brad, I'm not joking. We were just talking about you. People are probably...
He thinks he's late.
Right?
He's worried. He thinks he's late for work.
People are going, who's Brad Spicoli? Okay. Very quickly, let me tell you about our friends at All About Catering. All About Catering LLC is a full-service caterer. Graduations, weddings, bridal showers, corporate events, everything you need catering for, from 25 to 4,000 people. All About Catering will take care of you. Customer service and satisfaction is their number one goal. They have done events for me. They've done them absolutely right. They'll do it for you as well. So don't sweat your next big event. Just go to allaboutcateringllc.com to see their menus and all their 5-star reviews. Give them a call, 586-731-1398, to get your event started. As I mentioned, Rona Danziger kindly joining us. Rona, we talked to Greg, we talked to Art, we talked to Terry Foster, and you mentioned the garage. And I'm going to say this to my dying breath. There are still people that when you say the garage, they go, ha ha. And I'm like, no,
No, it was
we
a garage.
literally, it was a, thank you. I'm going to let you say it. I'm tired of telling
Yeah,
people.
it's a
We were
garage.
in a garage, literally a garage.
Yeah, it was basically, it was really one room that they sort of carved a little, little studio out of, a little production room, a little, control room. We didn't have a news pod or a newsroom. We used that little like half wall to cordon it off. And the program director had a small office. I mean, it was a one room piece of crap downtown off an alley down the street from Dunleavy's. Thank God for Dunleavy's. I mean, that's what it was. And we were like in the alley. We had security in the alley. We like had to, watch ourselves at night. Yeah, it was like, I mean, you had the W4 building right there on Jefferson, and they didn't have room for us. So they literally threw us in this thing. It was a thing, which was supposed to be temporary. And I think we were in it for like 9 years before we moved to Southfield. I mean, it's what it is. Every year, we're like, we're going to be moving. We're moving.
I get this question a lot. How did you know who to pair with whom and why it worked?
Well, Stoney and Wojo were already paired.
Right.
So that was already, I got a lot after Greg left. There was a lot of advice about what to do with mornings and midday. I'll be like, there was a lot of people chiming in, including Greg himself, that had given, his 2 cents. And, I just looked at personalities. I don't know, it's not an exact science. You kind of roll the dice. I knew Sean should be the permanent guy in middays. It had been BT and BT left. And, I liked Sean on the air. I just thought he resonated with people. I thought guys got him. You could just tell, like you can hear the passion in callers and the people emailing in, and you could see him at events. People turned out. So, you could see that it wasn't just a gut feeling. People turned out. So I knew that Sean would be good in middays as the midday guy. And as far as mornings, it was just a hunch that Jamie and Brady, I was told not to do that by several people, and that it wouldn't work out. It wouldn't be a good dynamic. It wouldn't be good chemistry, that it just wouldn't work. And I just thought it would. And I just decided, I have learned through the years, if I don't go with my gut on things, I almost always regret it. Like when I go against what my gut feeling is screaming at me, it's never good. And that was just like, I just felt like that pairing would work. And when I heard them together at times doing fill-in or whatever, I really liked the shows and I thought they could develop, but they had to develop. But I always looked at everything, even when I hired people, but I always looked at like, not so much what it sounds like this minute, but what's it going to sound like in 6 months? What's it going to sound like in a year? Are we going to have that growth? And I could foresee what the shows could sound like.
Well, why did they tell you? Why did they tell you it wouldn't work? What was the reasoning?
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow, that's interesting.
Chemistry. There was a little bit of Jamie's too straight, Brady's too weird, that they wouldn't play off each other well. That their sense of humors wouldn't mesh. There should be an athlete in the morning. I got that. We should be going with somebody else that's been doing fill-in and, it has played the game and could give better insight. And I thought, I don't know if I want my morning show again, breaking things down and all insight. I wanted it to be really fun. I wanted it to be knowledgeable, but I wanted it to be really fun and irreverent and self-deprecating. And I wanted the whole station to be this like landing place for people to just have fun with. And I just thought those guys could develop that, because I thought Jamie was really funny with his dry sense of humor. I thought Brady was really funny with his I just thought they could mesh. And honestly, what was surprising about that show was, Shep, you doing mornings, and I realized how funny you were, which never came out on the air. And I'm like, if we can get this exposed, and you were like open to it, but I'm like, if we can expose how funny Shep is and how much you'll like laugh at yourself, this could be really good. And so, we started doing that. We started playing off we ran those promos that were like the many emotions of Shep, and they all sounded the same. Angry Shep sounded like happy Shep. It sounded like excited Shep. You didn't know anything about pop culture. We created a game out of that. And we just messed with you, and you were totally open to it because you had that sense of humor about yourself, because you were just really comfortable in your skin. That was the thing about DFM was, it's not that people didn't have egos, but we were okay laughing at ourselves. I could do it with me. I mean, we all could just let it, how many times did Wojo make fun of Stoney and Stoney make fun of himself? I mean, all the time.
Yeah.
So, that was part of what people related to. And if we ever had somebody on the air that couldn't be part of that, it wouldn't have worked.
Right.
No, I'll tell you what, Rona, give your gut some credit because, and I don't mean this as a shot to anybody. I mean, not only was that the longest tenure by a lineup, I mean, that lineup went unchanged for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was the best success of the station as well. I mean, that was a pretty cool era talking from 03 until 07 when we, to use the term again, we started the Death March. But that was a pretty darn good era where all the shows were doing quite well and the station was as well.
Yeah, the station was doing really well. You might remember, and I'm happy to share this, but I remember when they were structuring contracts, they made them all bonus heavy because they never thought that we would bonus, because they never thought our ratings would do much, right? They didn't think middays would do anything. They thought mornings would never, they thought mornings were going to be trashed after Greg left, and Henson, that is. And the only ones that they really counted on were Stoney and Wojo for ratings. And then we started bonusing. Everybody started bonusing. And I remember it was like drama because it was hitting our bottom line in a way that nobody expected. And I actually had to have a meeting about it. And I'm like, this is not, what am I having a meeting about? You guys got to go sell it. This is not I can take, you want me to tank the radio station? I know exactly what I could program to tank the radio station. But we did. I mean, the mornings did really well. They hit top 5. Middays did really well. I mean, that lineup was really strong. And for anybody that doubted it, they were proven wrong. They really were. And it didn't happen right away. And it did take a lot of work, and people had to really be dedicated to the mission. And, but it did work. And, it was just part of the evolution of the radio station too. I mean, let's be honest, the longer you're on, the more chance you have to get an audience. So, I don't want to take 1,000% credit for that. I mean, the lineup was great. The talent was great. And we built that audience. I mean, it takes time to build it, which is why it was so tragic that they didn't ever move it to the FM and blew it up because it was an expense line. I mean, that's really what it was. Because as we built, we proved that we could sell that station. Like, we could get people hooked on it, and not just hooked. I mean, it was like a cult for some people.
Rona, I'll ask it. Was there ever a time that you thought that they were considering moving to the FM signal? I think, Shep, I don't want to speak out of turn. I think there was a little period of time for the staff where we thought, okay, this might happen. It didn't last very long. I think it became apparent to all of us, but was there ever a chance from your vantage point that the powers that be at the time, Clear Channel, were ever going to move that to 106.7? Did that ever get into a serious discussion?
At one point I got really hopeful. I did. I mean, I put together so many different plans for so many different things. And ultimately in the building, there was a consensus that we would be very successful on the FM. The problem was that we had a 50,000 watt blowtorch, as it was referred to, on the AM, that they had nothing. They didn't know what to do with it to recap any revenue we'd lose from that AM dot. They didn't know what to do. So the thinking was, yes, we could win sports and we could be huge in sports radio, but will the revenue between the FM and the AM grow? Because we're going to lose that AM revenue. That's what it was. It was a math problem. And at one point, there was so much support in the building above my head to do it, and everybody loved the plan and the idea of Stoney and Wojo and that morning show and Sean Baligian on the FM was so attractive. And we thought, hey, maybe we'll get more sports rights from this. We'll grow that way too. We can go after the Lions, we can, all of this. But hanging out there like a black cloud was, what do we do with this 50,000 watt station that bills X amount a year? We're never going to match that. But we could probably bill X amount with another music format. It was a math problem, and the music format would be cheap because back then too, if you recall, everything was getting voice tracked. They were basically syndicating and voice tracking everything. So you could bill a really good amount very cheaply with a music station if you wanted to do it. And, they actually did have a lot of live talent at that point. I mean, the Drive and all of that. I mean, those were live jockeys, but they were moving towards cutting all of that.
Yep.
So, I got hopeful for a minute, but every time the powers that be outside the building looked at it, they couldn't figure out, what do we do with the lost revenue on the AM? Well, could we ever bill enough? If that AM signal, ironically, had been worse, and it's almost like they weren't ready to jettison that AM. That's what they really would have had to have done in this way, is kind of jettison that AM, because they weren't going to put more talk on there. It's too expensive. Local talk.
Sure.
Yeah.
Syndication was not going to be successful.
Did you ever get in arguments, battles with people, fighting, scratching, and clawing for what would have been better for the market, the station, the channel in general? How did that play out with you in some of those meetings?
So for me personally, I had the support of everybody in the building. I mean, I worked right under Don Theodore. He was all about it.
Loved it.
When the musics were working out before it went country, that for him, that was a no-brainer. Like, that was just we got to put DFN, and we worked out, we can get the CBS product off we'll beat them. They'll be gone. We'll own it. The biggest problem, and even above Don's head in the building, our market managers, Dave Pugh, Till Levesque, they were all about, they wanted to put DFN on that signal. Ultimately, the problem was, just to go back to your question, I didn't have to really scratch and claw and fight. The product was so good, and the AM ratings were so good at the time that it was kind of a no-brainer of, oh my God, if we expose this product on the FM and start getting all these people that don't even tune to AM, which is like 60% of the market at that time, now it's higher. If we get them tuning into DFN, it's going to be humongous. But outside the market, where everything is a spreadsheet and an expense line, every time it came back, it was, they're not ready to jettison that AM. They'd have to jettison the AM.
Amazing.
And, for me, there was nothing I wasn't going to be calling our regional vice presidents of programming, because I'd just be out of a job, and that wasn't going to be helpful to anything. So,
Rona, I want to pick back on that.
It's unbelievable, man. It's incredible that you can have people in a market who know the market better than people outside the market, make their strong recommendations, and they still get shut down. It's amazing the ineptitude of some people and the goal that they have, thinking that they know a market better than the people they actually hired to run that.
The problem was it wasn't even about the sports radio station itself, and it wasn't about our ratings, because our ratings were really strong at the time. It wasn't any of that. It was purely a math problem. They didn't think their sales department could figure out how to recoup the lost revenue on AM. And we were pretty confident we could bill enough on the FM to recoup all of it. Like, that was our position, was we could absolutely sell the living daylights out of the station, and our rates are going to skyrocket. Yep. You're going to take a successful AM station that most of the market doesn't even tune into AM. You're going to take a station that's taps with men. You're going to move it to a signal everyone listens to. You're going to build the living daylights out of it. Our argument was that they were completely wrong in their thinking. Jettison that thing. We're going to bill way more with the combo than before. And they wouldn't do it. They didn't trust their sales. At the end of the day, they didn't trust sales to sell it.
Rona, I want to piggyback on something you said in just a second, but I do want to mention my friends with the Wealth Advantage Group, and two great guys, friends of mine, take care of me and my family. And if you're ready to take charge of your financial future, look no further than the Hanson brothers right there. Wealth Advantage Group, located in historic downtown Northville, owned by two guys with over 20 years of industry experience. They understand that your financial goals are as unique as you are. That's why they offer personalized expert guidance to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning. Now, whether you're saving for retirement, getting ready to sell your company, already in retirement, they can help guide you through every step of your financial journey. They work with clients throughout all stages of life and have clients in over 20 states. Look, the investment world is a complex one, but if you're ready to start taking your finances more seriously, it might be time to work with a couple of experts. Reach out to the Hanson brothers, the Wealth Advantage Group at 248-773-8574, or view their website at www.thewealthadv.com. Shep, I don't know if you went through the same thing, but Rona mentioned something. There were a ton of people out there that didn't even know AM existed. And for guys like us, Shep, like Rona, I'm not joking. The day that I heard WDFN, it changed my life. Like, I'm going back to 1994. It was like, this is the greatest idea in the history of man. I mean, I thought it was so great. But that was one thing that I discovered is I started to do more things in the business. And Shep, I'm sure you can attest to this with all your stuff with Fox Sports and all of that. I would do something on Fox 2 and people would go, wow, I had no idea that 1130 existed. And it blew my mind. I mean, that's something I mean, really, there was a giant group of people out there that had no idea that WDFN was a thing.
Yeah, the percentages of people that don't back then, when I say 60% of the market did not turn on AM, those were studies done. Like, I mean, there's talk about just getting rid of the AM. I mean, you hear that cars stop, not carrying the AM dial and everything else. I mean, back then it was kind of shaky, and it's just a reality. And back when we were running DFN, that's when you started to enter into digital radio started to become a thing. That didn't catch on, but then satellite radio became something and cell phones became a thing. Like, the more distractions in the car, the worse it was going to be for us, because you already had a smaller slice of the pie because people just didn't tune into AM. So you already had a limit to how many people were going to find you. And then if those people got distracted listening to other things like satellite radio, or God forbid, talking on their phones while they're driving home and everything else, we were going to be in trouble. And so for us, it wasn't just about beating CBS in 1270 at the time. It was, and owning sports, which we would have for sure. But it was also about longevity. Like, if we're gonna be around, we can't be on a band that people aren't listening to. And it's getting worse. It's not getting better. It's not like they're going to find AM now. They're even less likely. Like, they're not going to do it. And AM doesn't sound as good. It's just, how many times did we try on the radio station? It didn't sound, we went through periods where the station had all kinds of technical problems, where the AM signal was really challenged. It was just, we really did a lot of great radio with a lot of obstacles. We just did. And I still think if DFN had moved to that FM dial and I was passionate about it, we would have killed it. I mean, there's no question.
Shep,
Like, they underestimated that sales department. And,
I agree 100%.
A very prominent person from across the street told me after the fact that they were so sure that we were going to move to the FM band that they had Plan B in place. And I was like, well, you're kind of an ass for telling me that. I appreciate that. Boy, that really helps me now. But I mean, there was no doubt in my mind that we would have continued to have the success we were having. But wasn't meant to be, Shep.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about that. But there did come a time, Rona, where we were kind of looking at each other. We're like, man, this is a lot different than when it first started, when it was most successful. And you almost saw the writing on the wall. What was the emotion like for you when you're in your office and you're looking around going, this is a shell of what it was before?
Well, the last couple years with DFM were really hard. I mean, it was stressful, like physically ill, stressful, because so much of it was really out of our control. And it became about, how do we try to protect the employees and the product? And, just one thing after another became apparent that nobody outside of our market cared about the product or the station or what we were doing. It was, I couldn't let anything get out because that would have been completely terrible for every employee. Because, for listeners, DFM was, part of their daily ritual, and it was something that they listened to and had opinions about, but it was a job. I mean, this is how people pay all their bills and their mortgage and their rent and their cars. And the last thing I wanted was for people to be in a panic about, hey, they're not dedicated to this station, and it's a private equity company. They're just looking at expense lines. Like they don't care. I couldn't have any of that be out there. And at the same time, trying to figure out how to save it, if there was a way to save it. How do we restructure it so it looks more attractive to a private equity firm? Like, what do we do to make our expense lines look better? It was, Sean, you talked about it being a really fun, like having fun. I stopped having fun. It became, I want the on-air people and everybody working on the product to have fun. This is not fun for me. This is every day, figuring out how to like get duct tape together to keep it together. So I knew, and near the end, when I knew what they were going to do, and I didn't know if I was going to get laid off or what was going to happen, but my husband and I had saved a bunch of money, and we agreed, like, if they killed the station but try to keep me, I'm quitting. And so I actually started to empty out my office a little bit because I had a lot of stuff in my office. I had knickknacks, I had bobbleheads, like I had all that stuff. My office like was covered in like everything that if an employee gave me a memento from a trip, I kept it and I put it on my shelf. And I just really thought that was special. I still have all of it. I got bobbleheads as gifts. I got all kind. And so I was like, how am I this is a lot of stuff. And so I started to kind of thin it out a little bit, but not in an obvious way, just because I knew this is not gonna end well. I think all these rumors are correct. Everything I'm hearing from upper management is bad. And, but I don't want anyone to know that at this point because it would just be a nightmare, for the team. But, if and I was hearing I wasn't going to get laid off, but I was like, I'm done with this. And so I started kind of thinning out, and one person noticed that my office looked a little bit thinner with just a little bit. And it was our engineer, Albert Dale, walked in, closed the door and said, "You're cleaning your office. This is bad. These rumors are true." And I'm like, don't say anything. But yeah, I think it's bad.
I was like, no, I won't. Don't worry about it. That's all right. I didn't want it. What?
I mean, it was demoralizing. And we were still doing great radio. And at the end of it was like nobody cared. And I mean, listeners cared. We all cared in the building. But I knew like nobody else outside of our building cared at all about what we were doing. They were trying to sell that company. And that was it. That was all they were trying to do was cut expense.
Shep, I told Rona before we started, and I have no problem saying it here. I did have a blast that last year for the reasons that Rona just said. Because like for me, and I thank God, and Brad, I hope you're still watching. I thank God that I work with a bona fide idiot. Because, and Brad, you were a bona fide idiot, okay? You might still be, but you had two choices at that point in time. You could hang your head and feel sorry for yourself and start looking for a job, or you could go down swinging. And we just started doing crazy stuff and trying different things and just doing silly stuff that Rona, you approved and you were cool with. And honest to goodness, we had a blast. And like, that's one good thing about that. Looking back, I mean, 16 years later, I don't have anything to hang my head about. You know what I mean? I didn't mail it in. I didn't say, well, other than mail-in day, but I mean, honestly, I kept swinging until the end. And because of that, when you kind of have that, oh, well, looks like the ship is sinking feeling, you have a tendency to do crazier and sillier things. And so I think because of that, we just were like, all right, if this is the way things are going to be, let's just go have fun. And boy, we had a lot of fun that last year. That was kind of my attitude, Shep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do that every single day.
No,
but it has to be your general consensus and the general attitude. I agree with that. Rona, what are you doing now?
So I am the paid ads manager for GTU, which is a local digital marketing agency. I've been there for 8 years now. It was actually started by Al Zara, who is one of our engineers on the
Yeah.
team. Christine
Great.
Yee works there. It was started because we all got kind of tired of corporate dictating everything. I mean, it was really born out of this kind of thing. I actually left DFN. I took some time off work because I needed a break. And then I went over and did go to work for CBS for a while. And Al started GTU to do website design and and he started working with Christine Yee on website design and graphic design and then started to build the agency from there. And when I was just done with radio, back in 2016, I just reached out to him because we were friends. We were really good friends. And I always liked Al, and I was just networking, and he's like, "Hey, I need help at my agency." And so a lot of the stuff I had to do as a program director sort of transferred over, and then I just have had to learn a ton. But, managing clients and working on projects, I mean, you do that as a program director. That's what you do. So that's what I'm doing. I'm managing the paid ads department. I work with a great team. We do great work. We have, we don't have anybody above Al dictating anything to us about anything we want to do. We can take care of clients the way we think we should. We can do all the things that we thought didn't always get done completely right when we worked in radio and didn't have control. So, yeah, it's great. Al is great. He's a really great friend. It's great to work with people that you care about. Christine and I always had a blast working together. Christine did all of our website stuff. She did everything for the group, and we worked together also at CBS. Super talented. So it's been really fun, like working with her. And, I mean, it's funny, like Christine and I did all kinds of crazy stuff at DFN with the billboards, and we were called sexist because people thought it was men doing all this stuff with the billboards and, the chicks in bikini tops and ear candy, eye candy with, some of the crazy stuff we put out there. And we still laugh about it. We still laugh about naked news and all that crazy stuff we put on the website. Our website got a lot of page views.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Ron, I'm going to say it again. You are a tremendous boss. I became a better broadcaster because of you, period, end of story. I mean,
Thank you.
honestly, I'm serious. I have no problem saying that publicly. And I think a lot of the guys would say the exact same thing. Pete just asked a very important question. Were you pissed at me when I would dip on the show? Was that something you got pissed about?
If it was coming out on the air, yes. I never drank it. Somebody drank it once by accident, thinking it was a Coke. I forget who that was. But it was the same way I would get mad at Stoney if he was watching TV and not paying attention, right?
It was all the time.
All the time.
It was Greg Brady. It couldn't have happened to a better person.
Oh, that's
It
right.
just
Yeah, it
could
was
not
Brady.
have happened to a better person that
Yeah.
he took a big swig of the dip. So
Yeah, I just thought it was gross. But as long as I couldn't pick up on it while I was listening, if I wasn't hearing the spitting, fine. If I was hearing the spitting, it was going to have to stop.
Come on. You can tell when someone's dipping, though. You don't have to hear a spit.
He was constantly muting his mic. It was disgusting.
yeah.
Well, just so we're clear, folks, just so we're clear, Rona had a problem when Sean was dipping, but all the other people who eat on the air, smash on the air, work on the air, that's so.
I wasn't a huge fan of that either. Which, again, can you stop? I mean, there were times I had to tell Stoney to stop. Just stop.
Yeah. Hey, I'll tell you what, though, when you want to talk about atmosphere, that building on Halstead, when they would have those barbecues in the summer, when the engineers would go man that grill, and that building was so alive and so happy. It really was. I mean, really a very fun few years in that building. It's a shame what happened to, I think it's safe to say not just that building, but this entire industry as a whole. But boy, we had a pretty good thing going there for a few years, Rona.
Yeah.
We did have fun. I actually just connected with Mojo recently. And we talked about just, how fun times were, back in the day. And I talked to Dom recently, several times. And, we talk about like, those were the fun. We had a lot of fun. I mean, it was fun. That building was alive. I mean, really for a long time, we didn't get a huge budget, but we were left alone for a long time to do our thing. And I'll I'll say that. I mean, once when I took over the PD chair, I was brand new and I had a lot to learn and it was rough at times for sure. I mean, I made mistakes and definitely had to take my lumps for that. But once we got rolling and the lineup took off, everybody kind of left us alone. And that went on for a really long time. And it was fun. And the building loved what we were doing and the stations got along really well. And all the teams and all the staffs like worked together really well. I mean, we would have fun in the hallways. And it translated on the air. You could hear it. So I mean, it was I haven't been in radio now in years. I don't know if it's like that. I know that I didn't feel that same thing. There was just a camaraderie when you start something, and I've never felt it since. I have a little bit of GTU because that agency was so new when I started working for them and so small, and it's grown so much. It's kind of a similar feeling of just like a feeling of building something and doing something important. And you don't get that just changing jobs and going somewhere else. And we always had it. We had it in the garage. We moved to Southfield. We had it. We moved to, the building on Halstead and we had it. And we met a lot of really great people at the other radio stations. And it was a cool experience. It really was.
Yeah. What's interesting about that is you can't find that always in a job that you're searching for.
Right.
It harkens back to what you want your job to be like, but you don't always get there, but you can still strive for it. Right. I mean, I think that's the ultimate compliment. Compliment is you go to a place, wherever it is you may be working, you try to create that symmetry, that camaraderie. You can't get it, but you still strive for it. Or if you don't have it there, you're like, okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going to try to find it someplace else.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest compliments you can give that place. So Rona, it's great having you on, man. Really appreciate it. It's great to see you. You look great. You sound like you're doing great. I hope it continues for you because you deserve it.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. It's great. I'm glad you're doing this. It's, 30 years. It's kind of sad though. I wish it was still around. It would
Amen. Yeah. Amen.
Few decisions.
You know what? I wouldn't want it around you guys if it weren't good.
No, it'd have to be the way we'd have to be running it the way we could run it.
100%.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Doing the things that
I'm not saying the same people. I'm just saying you would have to run it the way it's supposed to be run. In other words, do it right or don't do it at all.
Yep.
Right.
And I don't know if they would have that type of commitment for anybody. So
We'll never know. I say,
Rona,
I say we would have been huge.
Yeah. Yep. Rona, thank you so much. Say hello to Jeff. It's great to see you. And again, thanks. You're a fantastic manager. And both Shep and I have said, honestly, we'll always have your back. You're great to me. You were great to Shep. You were great to the staff. So thank you for that. Really.
thanks, Rona.
I appreciate it, guys. I really do.
You
All
bet.
right. Rona Danziger, before we get out of here, let me tell you about our friends from Legacy Partners. Did you know that thousands of Metro Detroiters have already called Legacy Partners to get help with their home and auto insurance? Our friends at Legacy Partners are one of Southeast Michigan's top independent insurance agents. They provide a full-service, one-stop solution for all of your insurance needs, personal and business, large and small. These guys are coming over to my house on Saturday. Yeah, I'm having a barbecue with them. They have helped our listeners. Shep, you want to come over? They have helped our listeners by fixing mistakes other agents have made, asking the right questions to get the right coverage put in place. Oh, by the way, help save you some money. Chances are, if you haven't checked your policies, we're doing that on Saturday, in the last year, you're probably paying too much and you could be underinsured. What are you waiting for? Call, get your quote, give them a chance to help with your home, your cars, life insurance, Medicare enrollment, or your business insurance needs. 586-209-4106. Check out their website at legacypartnersins.com, and you too can get started with your new quotes. Shep, did you see what Pete said? Rona's mad at me for dipping, so I just stuck a bit of KFC skin in there. Sean, circa 2008. You know what the
So
key was?
true.
Can
So
I tell you
true.
what?
Somebody knows you pretty well.
Don't put the big one in there. Just put the little one in there, because then it's up for debate. Then it's like, does he have a dip in, or does he just talk that way now because of the indentations?
Small is too small. That's the problem. Okay, so I have a buddy. We used to give him all kinds of shit because he would take just a few granulars and put it in there. And we'd say, where is it? He'd have to pull out his lip to show us. That's not dipping. What are you doing? I mean, come on, man. He's trying to tell us he is, but he's really showing us that he's not.
Yeah.
So how small is small enough? It's got to be. I'm going to ask you to be Walt Garrison. I'm not asking you to do a little pinch between the cheek and gum, right? But it's got to be at least somewhat noticeable, Sean. It's got to be.
It was, you know what? It was like that. Remember Lucky? And we're going to try to catch up with Lucky. Lucky boy, was he a funny guy? But
Oh, that would be good.
he always used to play that. It's not a tumor. It's like half the time people go, "What's that in your mouth? Is that a tumor?" And I was like, "Not yet. It's only tobacco now. Not yet.
It will be.
Maybe one day." Okay, I've been doing this for 40 years now, so let's hope for it. Hey, seriously, it was great to chat with Rona. Always a pleasure to see you, my friend. We'll catch up with somebody else again next week.
Yeah, I hope so. I've texted Brady a couple of times. We'll see what happens with it.
You and I are going to have to talk about that. I had a conversation with Brady, so maybe maybe we can double team him a little bit. How's that?
That would be great. I think that's a necessity. If he's giving you any BS excuses, let's you and I just drive to Toronto and get the hell out of it.
I'll just call him a liar. We can play the "you're a liar, you're a liar" game.
Well, even he admits it now.
Exactly.
All right, brother. Have a great weekend.
All right, we'll see you guys. Thanks again to Rona, Shep. Most importantly, thank you for joining us. Until next time, I'm Sean Baligian. Peace.
Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian. Produced by Todd Losey and Blake Matcherzak. Executive produced by Sean Baligian and Todd Losey. Theme song, incidental music, and related sound effects are from Still Alive by Anti-Ghost. Engineering, mixing, and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated Podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.